Yes, Governor, your book details the 2015 Baltimore riots following the death of Freddie Gray after his ride in a police van. You quickly declared a state of emergency and brought in the National Guard. 5 years later, unfortunately, we are still seeing peaceful protests, but unfortunately, there's also been looting and vandalism. Federal troops were sent to Portland, and crime is on the rise, and we're seeing huge spikes in major cities. What do you think is being done right or wrong in managing these rising tensions right now?
Well, so I talk about that a lot in my book. I think we have 5 chapters about what happened in 2015. You know, I was a brand new governor. I'd only been in office for 89 days when the worst violence in 47 years broke out in our largest city. And I think we handled it pretty well. And quite frankly, I'm very proud of the way Baltimore this year, had very peaceful protests, unlike a lot of cities. And I think some of it had to do with the fact that we learned a lot of lessons from 2015. But in 2015, after the death of Freddie Gray, we had a lot of violence break out initially. But we sent in a state police, 1,000 police officers. We sent in National Guard to try to back up the beleaguered city police after 400 businesses were destroyed and 127 police and firefighters were injured. And so we allowed peaceful protests to go on for a solid week, but we did not allow any violence or destruction to take place. And I think that's probably a mistake that's taking place. In some cases, if you move in too aggressively, it's the wrong thing to do because it just causes more violence. But if you just allow a destruction to take place without a police presence and you're not keeping people safe, that's also a mistake. I think we found that balance. I write in my book, it reminded me of, Reagan used to talk about peace through strength, and we sent enough people to keep the citizens of Baltimore safe and let them know it was going to be okay. We weren't going to burn any more houses or businesses, and we weren't going to let anybody else get hurt. But we let the protesters who were expressing very legitimate frustrations get out there and peacefully protest. Very proud of the way Baltimore handled it this year, and I think many mayors and frankly some governors are not following that same game plan that we utilized very effectively in 2015.
Governor, as you know, when you were here last, I mentioned to you that I lived in Maryland and in Baltimore in particular, so it's a city that's very dear to my heart. My son was born there. And in reading your book, you describe Freddie Gray as a Crips gang-connected street-level drug dealer. There's no evidence that he was affiliated with any Crips gang, and I'm sure you didn't intend to imply that his death was deserved, but the Black Lives Matter movement is not just about black deaths at the hands of police, right? It's about systemic racism, and you've been accused of contributing to the problem by killing the Red Line Transit project that would have connected thousands of black Baltimore residents to better jobs and improve air quality, because I live there and I know that would have helped. And you also proposed cuts to the public school system, and in fact you cut, I think, about $36 million from school budgets, but you approved $30 million to build a youth jail in Baltimore. How do you respond to these allegations?
Okay, hold on. That's a long question, but again, none of that is true. I've dramatically increased education 6 years in a row.
Oh, it is true.
We've invested nearly twice as much into education in Baltimore City per pupil than we do anywhere else in the state. The so-called, we closed and tore down the Baltimore City jail. I passed justice reinvestment. We lowered our prison population more than any other state in America. The youth jail you're talking about was a bill that was passed at the federal level under President Obama. That was the Youth Rape Act that said we had to create a new facility to protect youth who were incarcerated. So, I mean, you read stories and it sounds pretty dramatic, but we've invested billions of dollars in the city of Baltimore in redevelopment and job training. We've gotten rid of, I think 15,000 blighted units. It's less than 10% of our population, but trust me, we've focused a lot on the city of Baltimore, probably more than half of our attention over the past 5 or 6 years, and it's why I have a 70% approval among the black voters in Baltimore City.